George Goyton was your average 18-year-old boy attending current year high. Today he had math. Being an overprivileged white man, he sat at the back row. He liked math, as the blacks had difficulty completing simple algebra and had been put into special ethno-sensitive education program which had been a $52 billion school program that forced the state to raise the white privilege income tax to 42%. Or, well, not blacks but ethnically enriched brethren of color, as was the school mandated correct speak for people of melanin-rich background. Here he had a quick respite from the constant physical retribution for his white oppression he had to endure in classes with his Somali brethren of color. During lunch last week one of them had come up to him, stretched out his open palm and proclaimed, "Manis, now!" His English was very poor since teaching them our language is oppressive and English is inherently a racist language. George gave the Somali his last $5, who looked disappointed, took it, and punched George right in the nose, breaking it. "This time, mo monies." A teacher stepped in and gave George detention for failing to meet a spontaneous reparations payment. His teacher also sent his parents a note citing his behavior as suspicious for racism. The Somali's outburst of violence was discarded as justified violence since George had provoked him with his inherent racism. But here in math class, the only problem would be the Muslims. Last month, for show and tell, Muhammad had taken the decapitated heads of slain infidels to class and proclaimed his allegiance to ISIS. The teacher gave him a perfect mark and told the whole class to applaud how brave Muhammad is and how this had nothing to do with Islam. Now George opened his math book and scrolled through the trigger warnings to find the math problem they were trying to solve.
Lisa, can you tell me what 8 times 9 is?
The teacher asked.
Racist!
Lisa responded with a smile.
Very good, Lisa. 5 credits added to your politically correct social account.
"Allahu Akbar!" shouted Muhammad, and leapt from his chair, clad in a baklava, armed with a knife, and ISIS written on his back. He jumped Lisa and started raping her in front of the class. George was slightly annoyed at this inconvenience, as now they didn't get to do any math, because they had to chant, "This has nothing to do with Islam, this has nothing to do with Islam," over and over until Muhammad was done, which lasted until the end of the class. By then he had decapitated Lisa, and with her head in one hand he led, "This is the fate of all non-believers, praise be Allah." A news reporter later wrote that the girl had tripped and fell on a poor Muslim boy's penis several times, and then her head fell off. The state decided to fight this increased sexual violence by giving away 5 million more to feminist mouthpieces and raised the male privilege tax to 37%. Another victory for social democracy in the multi-ethnic utopia. After school, George was walking home as he passed some white girls who were chit-chatting.
I think Trump's an evil racist.
Her back was arched terribly far back in an almost unnatural angle. The second girl, in a similar pose but with her back arched even further back, said,
I think he's literally Hitler. Anyone who votes for him is literally a Nazi.
The third girl chimed in,
He hates women.
Her back was bent so far back that her head was on level with her butt. The first girl, now with her head resting against her butt cheeks, said,
All people are equal, like duh.
The second one, who was now pressing her head between her butt cheeks, agreed.
There's only one race, the human race.
With superhuman tenacity, the third girl was penetrating her butthole with her head while smugly stating,
Like, literally, I can't even. I mean, not all Muslims, am I right?
The first girl responded,
Love, not hate. All these racist, sexist, Islamophobic, transphobic, heteronormative.
The rest of her sentence was cut off as her head disappeared inside her butthole. All the girls now had their heads so far up their asses that none of their virtue signaling could be heard. A passing garbage truck with the words "I'm with her" printed on the side scooped up the girls and gave them a ride to the nearest polling booth. Continuing down the street, he concentrated on keeping his thoughts clean and in line with the state correct think guidelines as to not break any wrong think laws. Psst, hey, kid. George stopped in his tracks. He looked into a dark alley where a shadowy figure was leaning against the wall. He felt uneasy at first, but remembered that treating people differently based on suspiciousness was stranger-phobic and punishable by a 10-credit reduction from his politically correct social account. George tried to not let his initial hesitation show as he approached the stranger. "You ever try one of these?" the stranger asked and held out an aluminum can with only the words "High Energy" written on it.
Is it kosher and halal and ecologically produced by ethnic women who earn as much as their male counterparts?"
George asked. The man laughed. It was a deep laugh, a manly guttural laugh, almost as if he had an illegal level of testosterone in his body. "It's got everything you need, kiddo," he responded. With that, George opened the can and took a sip. Immediately he felt something was wrong. He was shaking and convulsing. He looked at the can and read the fine print. The official energy drink of Donald Trump. Coughing and choking, George fell to the ground as thick black sludge oozed out of his ears. After some convulsing, the oozing stopped, and he felt relieved, like a burden had been lifted from him. He no longer felt ashamed of his gender or race. His head was full of dangerous wrong think, yet for the first time in a long time he felt a feeling he had forgotten. He felt happy. He stood up and looked at the pool of black pus he had left on the ground and asked,
What the heck is that?
"That's just your liberalism. It can't survive in a host body that is both high energy and independently minded," the man said, emerging for the first time from the shadows. He looked worn out, yet with a glow in his eyes. He was sporting an illegal 9 o'clock shave, as all facial hair was discrimination against women, and a dirty, red "Make America Great Again" cap on his head. Holding his blonde-haired, blue-eyed head high in typical oppressive Aryan Ubermensch fashion, and his hand stretched out to George, he said, "Welcome aboard the chump train, kid."
For a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.